For coming today to this Major to Career panel that is hosted by the Center for Career and Experiential Education. I am Dr. Natalie Sabick. I'm an associate professor in health studies here at URI. Although, as many of you know, we are changing to become public health in the fall, which is a really big step for us, and we're super excited about that. I want to let everyone know that we are recording the panel. And I'm going to kick things off by asking each panelist to introduce themselves, a little bit about their current position title, and if you choose to share your pronouns with us, we would love to know. We can start with Lauren, and Lauren, when you're done, if you just want to pass it off to another panelist, and so on, so that we can meet everyone that'll be sharing with us today, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thanks, Natalie. And hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Fisk. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as a program manager at Love Your Brain, which is a US-based nonprofit that serves a global population that seeks to improve the quality of life of people affected by brain injury. So I'll share more about that, but we have programs that build community and foster resilience for this population. And let's see, I will pass it off to Kayla.
Thank you, Lauren. Hi, my name is Kayla Mudge. My pronouns are she and her as well. And I am a communications manager for CVS Health, and specifically the business unit that I am in charge of is Minute Clinic. So if you go into CVS pharmacy location and you happen to go into one where you see what looks like a little doctor's office in the back, that is the organization that I provide communication support for. And in my role, I do external and internal communications, which includes like provider communications and then working with the media. And I will pass it off to Mary.
Hi, thank you. I'm Mary Rosa. I have my master's in public health, and I currently work for Neighborhood Health Plan of Rhode Island. So I work as a program evaluation specialist, a lot with the data analyst, and I do a lot of data work. And I will pass it off to Tiffany.
Oh, Tiffany wasn't able to join us today. Unfortunately, she's the one panelist that isn't here. So let's head over to Opiemi.
Hi guys, my name is Opiemi, and I am the Director of Memory Support at Anchor Bay East Providence, known as Elegance Living. My current role, it's pretty fun getting to be with the dementia resident and just being the fun person and creating a lot of awareness regarding dementia. And I also founded Sour Nigeria. It's a nonprofit organization. So that's currently my role, and yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for these introductions. I also just want to pause and thank our panelists so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I love hearing about what you guys are doing, and it's clear just from your brief introductions that you have a wealth of experience and information that you'll be able to share with us. So one of the things I wanted to jump into to have you all talk about a little bit is if you could tell us a bit about your career journey, the position that you started in or what you did after graduation and how you entered into the role you're in now. I think that demystifying those steps can be really helpful, especially for current students. So let's go in the same order that we did for introductions, and then we'll switch it up on our next question. So I'll pass it off to Lauren and we can follow the same order.
Okay, thank you. And buckle up, everyone, because my journey was not linear. And I think the best adventures in life often have a lot of twists and turns. And something that I'm really fortunate, like looking back and as I was preparing for the panel, was all of the opportunities that I said yes to along the way, which really equipped me with more learning about myself, self-discovery, but also all of the different possibilities that a health studies and public health degree can really lend you. So I'll try to keep this brief, but while I was at URI, I was really fortunate to discover and pursue my varied interests in global health, so health equity and social justice. I am really passionate about mindfulness-based interventions to promote well-being, especially focusing on mental health. And really weaving in expressive arts and different types of therapies to approach well-being. So immediately, like while I was at URI, I had the opportunity to go to Nepal with the Center for Peace Studies and built so many great relationships there, and received an invitation to go back and to deliver a school-based intervention that wove in yoga, mindfulness, nonviolent communication, and health education for youth. And so I thought, oh, I'm supposed to go to grad school in London to get my master's. I don't know if I should do this, if timing will align. And I just felt that like knock of, you should really try this. And so I got to work and created a school-based intervention and delivered it to 500 youth educators. And the way that timing worked out, it was following the 2015 earthquake. So that really sparked my interest in mental health and psychosocial support kind of in emergency settings. Following Nepal, I did end up training in global mental health in the UK at London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and King's College. And once I came back to Rhode Island, I worked in a variety of roles. So at Rhode Island School of Design and Higher Ed, helping them to establish their Office of Health Promotion for their undergrad and grad students. And so what that looked like was a lot of violence prevention, education, suicide prevention, and response, as well as general wellness events. So of course, I wove in mindfulness and expressive arts with that in a variety of topics like sleep and healthy relationships. I then realized that I really wanted to gain more research experience, and a really unique opportunity came up at Brown to serve as a research assistant on a National Institutes of Health funded research project looking at mindfulness-based blood pressure reduction. So how meditation can really help people who are struggling with cardiovascular issues such as high blood pressure. And so that was really fun. I got to basically stress people out in a room, doing mental math, doing all these, a battery of assessments, and taking their blood pressure throughout. So it was a randomized control trial, and really got to follow people through their journey and hear how meditation and just learning about themselves, and also nutrition and movement, how that really changed their life and impacted them. And got to also work on a mindfulness-based college adaptation. So what it's like and college experience of learning meditation. So that was super fun, and got to do qualitative research in that way. That role was impacted by COVID. And so transitioned to work at Day One, which is a local sexual violence response center. I started out offering trauma-informed yoga in a closed group for people who had survived sexual assault, and got really curious about the clinical side of things. And so had the opportunity to serve on their T team, which was a community-based program for youth and caregivers who were involved with DCYF, who had experienced sexual abuse. And so I completed assessments, provided education, and really a brave kind of open space for my clients to share their feelings and ask questions, and also share education around boundaries and how to process emotions healthfully. And then following Day One, I served as a health equity communications manager at the Rhode Island Department of Health. So I got some experience in government there, and then landed in my role, which blends all of these things together in one at Love Your Brain. So it's been quite the journey, and I get to do research, program design, mentorship, trainings, and run community retreats throughout the year. So feel very comfortable in saying this path might not be for you, but I encourage you to say yes when you're curious about something, and really lean into what your interests are. And if people say, how are these things going to connect? I don't think you're going to find a role. Keep looking, because it's definitely out there. So that's my spiel. I'll pass it over to you, Kayla.
Well, that's a tough act to follow because I definitely did not have as interesting of a career pathway. I stayed mainly in Rhode Island. But just to let you guys know, so I actually had found my position. I was very fortunate where there was a position that was posted to what we had then called Sakai. And that was the student, like your little student platform that you have where your teachers post all of their updates and everything. And a position for the Hospital Association of Rhode Island, which is part of the American Hospital Association, had opened up for a healthcare policy and communications fellow. And Dr. Yes, Lauren, and Dr. Molly Graney had actually sent me over the position and said, I really think you should apply for this. I did not have any experience at all in communications. My degree was in health studies, and I took maybe just communications 100, and that was it. And so I applied, and I ended up getting the job right out of college, was very fortunate. And I learned a ton about government, about healthcare policy, about communications. And one of the best things that I was told was that really gave me confidence was that we can teach you any skill, but we can't teach you personality. And one of the reasons I got it, regardless of not having a communications background or degree, was because they really felt that I would be a good fit for lobbying, which is, your politicians who are, really trying to fight for bills and everything for laws to be made, especially in healthcare. So they felt like I was a good fit for that. And it was a really incredible experience because similar to Lauren, I was able to work within the community and really connect with them and learn about some of the public health issues that our own community in Rhode Island was dealing with, and even across the nation, specifically mental health, some health disparities that we deal with here. So that was really, really cool and really interesting. And I got to know a lot of people. And because of that, since I was networking with a lot of people, it led me on my career pathway and set me up for success and being able to come to CVS because of the people that I was able to meet, the skills I was able to leverage. And after I was at the Hospital Association of Rhode Island, I was able to work for a federally qualified health center, Thundermist here in Rhode Island, and I was their communications lead, where I did more provider support for communications, which was really cool. And I really got to learn more about how to talk to clinicians and what is it that is important to them, and really learn that voice. And then I ended up at CVS. And I think one big thing I would encourage all of you, since you are still so young and at the beginning, very, very beginning of your career and end of your academic career almost, is that make sure that you utilize LinkedIn. Because the way I got CVS is that I was keeping my resume and my skills and my network updated, and I got this notification that said, you're a perfect match. And I ended up getting it. I was intimidated to apply for a communications position without a communications degree for a Fortune 6 company in the country. And I was told that actually, when it comes to healthcare communications, having a public health education and background is actually preferred over a communications degree, because a lot of the meetings that I am in are very, very clinical. And understanding a lot of that clinical talk and understanding research and understanding what they're even talking about really takes a certain set of skills and knowledge that not a lot of traditional communications people have. So I thought that was really interesting, and it's been a really great experience so far. And I've been at CVS for 3.5 years. And I have to say that, similar to Lauren, I think one of the best things that probably came out of the pandemic, as horrible as that time was, is as a public health professional, it was really an interesting experience working, especially at CVS Health, when they were trying to vaccinate everyone and take on that public health message, and being like a public health leader for all of that work was being part of that work and seeing the kind of impact that we could make, and just the power of healthcare communications and a good public health campaign as well. So that is a very small, high-level version of my career journey and where I am today. And I think the biggest takeaway is make sure that you guys never feel intimidated to apply for anything. Apply, and you never know who might hire you, because they think that they just really like you and think you're awesome. All right, so Mary, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you. So I started my studies at URI. I actually did research with Dr. Savick which really propelled my career in a way I did not see coming. I thought I was just like, oh, I'm going to learn more about public health, but I've really gone down the research rabbit hole afterward and really enjoyed my time. So I started off there. I then went to Brown University for my master's in public health. I got a grad assistantship, which once again, I'm going to agree, apply, apply, apply. I had no connections going into this. I didn't feel like I really connected with the job too much. I was like, I don't have a lot of background in that. I had never really had experience in substance use, but I was like, do you know, I'm going to go for it. I got lucky. I got the job. They once again said people don't apply enough. So even they agree, apply. I dove into the world of substance use. So I worked in research. I did things like I worked with people in recovery, and I got data from them, had sessions with them as they were trying to quit smoking as well. I entered data into databases. I then had to clean data. I then had to analyze data. I then had to present data. So I learned everything data in that position, and it was absolutely amazing. I then graduated during COVID, which was difficult, but luckily I had made good connections. And so they kept me on as a special programs coordinator for the opioid response network. So there I got a little more hands-on on the management of things and less of the research of things. Then after about 2 years, I decided that I felt like I outgrew my position there, but I really didn't have a direction of where I wanted to go yet. I knew I wanted to go somewhere, but I didn't know where. I thought I had to stay in substance use because that's where I had gotten my experience. But then I made the decision to actually go study program management in Rome for 1 year. So I went and lived in Rome for 1 year. I studied program management and business. It had absolutely nothing to do with health, and it was absolutely great for me. I had studied a lot of health things. I had not been exposed to the business side. So this decision ended up working great for me. I came back and said, okay, I'm taking a fresh look at the market. I'm going to find a job. I ended up getting a job at Neighborhood Health Plan of Rhode Island. They're an amazing company. They're very big on work-life balance, and they're very big on helping the community, which were two very important things for me. And also they're huge on data, which was good for me. So I am the program evaluation specialist there. So basically what I do is I take their claims data as well as their data on and anything else they can collect from outside vendors and whatnot, and I try to tell them what's working and what's not. The biggest thing that I have found to be helpful during navigating my career has been, yes, saying yes to things and not necessarily doing the thing you're expected to do. So nobody expected me to go study program management. A lot of people didn't see the connection it would have with my career. However, I actually use that degree almost every day in my job working in a corporate setting. So it's been great. So yeah, don't be afraid to do different things and have fun. I made a lot of my decisions, not just what's going to get me furthest in my career, but what am I going to enjoy and what's going to be fun for me? And I think you get really far doing that. And I'll pass it on.
All right. Wow, everybody else said everything. Those are good. With me, after graduating at URI, I was already working in a autistic facility, and which was mainly boys, young boys. And I was always curious as to what autistic was, because I never knew any background with autistic health and everything like that. What it led to, or how you get into the program through the state and everything. So I was always curious. So I stayed on with that job after I graduated at URI. And I started thinking, okay, what's next for me? Where do I need to go with my degree? And later comes, I actually got an invitation from AmeriCorps because I wanted to do Peace Corps. But I was too scared to go away for 2 years out of country. And when AmeriCorps came, this was in Boston. teaching after school program and also tennis. And I love playing tennis. So I went for it. And as an American fellow, the pay was not all beautiful. So then I told because at the time you're getting paid $620 every 2 weeks. So I started thinking as to like, okay, what do I need to do in order to get myself to where I need to be? I mean, I love the kids I was teaching, but at the same time, I needed to be in a role that I was comfortable in. And luckily, we had a career orientation at AmeriCorps, and there was a school, Regis College, and I knew of the lady that was talking when she came to URI during a networking event. And she told me, she's like, it would benefit you going for your master's. And I was like, I don't think I'm ready for school. I just graduated. I don't think I'm ready to dive into school yet. But eventually, because AmeriCorps had a off from like if you enroll in school at the time. So I went to Regis College to do my master's in health administration. And while I was there, I was still in AmeriCorps. And eventually when I graduated, I did an internship before I graduated and became a credentialing coordinator at Health Drive. And I loved it. I loved everything about it because I was credentialing providers from audiology to podiatrists to dentists and learning about Medicare, Medicaid, how to credential them and also credentialing them in nursing home, which was a big aspect. But during my internship, I did a project with them, which was condensing all the paperwork application for nursing home into one so that it wouldn't be a lot of paperwork that a credentialing had to do. So my project got approved by the company and they were using it and they asked me if I wanted to stay on as a credentialing coordinator. I was excited, did that throughout for 2 years actually. After I graduated, I did that for 2 years. And COVID happened and they had to lay people off or work from home. And they were also moving into a new location, which was going to be much farther from going from Providence to Western Massachusetts. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that. I needed something else. Like I said, I started off with working in an autistic company. So then I went into May Institute as the coordinator, as a I would say it was more of like an assistant position where I have to make sure that all the students are going in for their day program, making sure medication is on point for them, making sure family members were okay with things like that. So I did that for maybe 6 months and I said, okay, I need to do something because now I was not getting what I wanted to get. Then I totally said, okay, I need to work in Rhode Island because I can't keep driving back and forth from Rhode Island to Massachusetts. So I started off and then I started working here at my current position, actually just an assistant for
Hello?
activities. Yes.
Yep.
Oh, it looks like we just have someone that needs to be muted. Let me see if I'm able, or if one of our other.
Joe, just have her pick the weekends for
I
the
don't know if
morning.
Doug or Kristen is able to
It's
mute.
not
It looks like
that paper is not like a set thing.
it looks like someone named Julia is on, but with their volume up. Sorry. There we go. Okay, we've got her muted. Thank you so much. Sorry about that
It's okay.
interruption.
So
Go ahead.
I was an assistant for activities and from there I was retained. The position for memory care director opened up and the executive director at the time was like, okay, you should go for this. You are good in this. And ever since then, I love the role. It's so fulfilling. It's so much fun knowing the dementia resident and their family. It's just so fulfilling. Am I sure where I am going to be next? I don't know. I do have my executive director license as well. So I do want to run an assisted living company facility. I don't know how that's going to go. I also wanted to be a professor because I have taught in at CCRI, I did a class at CCRI for just one semester and I loved it. So there's so many aspects, but right now I'm still fulfilling what I love doing best, which is also learning about dementia. So that's basically my life throughout after graduating at URI.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you all so, so much for sharing that with us. It brings me so much joy to hear more about these paths that you've been on and also the different twists and turns that they've taken. I love how some of you were able to comment on the adversity that you faced during going through COVID and trying to navigate the work experiences during that. I think that's really important for us to hear and to think about. A couple other things that you guys mentioned that really stood out to me are being open to different opportunities, even when you're not sure about how it's ultimately going to align with where you end up. And also integrating your experiences and your skills into the new roles that you guys are, moving into and exploring. So I have a few more questions I want to ask the panel. I will say we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. And so if questions come up while the panelists are talking, feel free to pop them in the chat and we will get to those at the end. One of the things that I wanted to ask you guys to talk a little bit about is I think that it's really useful for students to have their eye on what kinds of skills or work experiences they should be seeking out or they could develop that would make them more competitive for positions in the field or in the area that you're working in. And so I wanted to see if that's something that you guys could speak to. Are there any experiences, internships, volunteer work, courses, skills, anything like that, that you would recommend that students look into or consider doing to position them well for, jumping into the kinds of paths that you guys are in? So this time I'd like to go in the opposite order. So I'll pass it right back to Opiemi and then we can go reverse order back through our panel.
I would say one specific skill that really helped me was I think it was Dr. Green's class actually. She brought in a special guest speaker to talk about um balancing what your purpose is and balancing what your career is, like what you love and what your career is going to be. And I took that personally because no matter what, you might like working with kids, you might like working with adults, but eventually you have to be able to have a balance between those themes and knowing and actually adding that to your passion as well, like joining it with your passion. So one thing I would say is make sure if there's any internship opportunity, take it because you never know those skills you learn from those internship is going to get you to your next goal or it's going to come up some way somehow no matter what. So that's one thing that was beneficial for me. So and going to Mary.
Yeah, I would say any internship is a good internship. I was actually discussing this with my supervisor the other day. We were talking about when people are applying and trying to break into the industry fresh out of college. And she was saying, I don't care if you had an internship for 1 week. If you put it on there, that means something. That means that you were willing to put that week aside and learn something new. That means that even though it was a week, you still did it. And you're showing that you were dedicated to something, and then also that you have the ability to take something new on. So even if your skills don't align with what an internship or a job says you need, the fact that you can show that you can learn a skill is huge. So I code at work with SQL. I had never used SQL before in my life. It was one of the things on the application that they're asking for. I said, I don't know SQL, but I know this other coding language that I have the ability to learn. And they said, oh, that's amazing. You have the ability, and they'll take you on for that. So just keeping that in mind.
Hi, so I'm probably the only one on here that did not have an internship experience during college. Financially, it just didn't work out for me. I had to work full time while going to school. And if you are like me and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm hearing about this doing internships, which is yes, you definitely should if you have the ability to do so and you have the opportunity to do so. However, I don't want anyone to freak out if you are 2 months away from graduating and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't have any internship experience, because I have to say, like, I worked for CVS as a pharmacy tech while in college, and I could never have told you that working as a pharmacy tech would have led me, like, or put me, like, in my career right now. Like, it's one of the things they asked me about during my interview. They asked me what it was like being a store employee, and they felt like it was a huge asset to have me at the corporate level because I knew what it was like to be in the stores. So that's another thing, is that I would say that, you know, if you haven't had an internship experience, please don't freak out, especially if you're about to graduate. Definitely take advantage of it. But there are other things too, that if you've been a part of a sorority or fraternity, for example, I was in Alpha Delta Pi during my time there, and having an officer position and doing a lot of volunteer work was something that really served me well, especially sitting in board meetings and knowing how to conduct myself with higher level executives and just kind of knowing the pecking order. That was something that really helped me, and not really something I thought would be a huge value after college. I was kind of more in it for the fun of it, but afterwards I realized that I really gained a lot of great skills from being in my sorority. In addition to that, you know, just I did do some volunteer experiences, you know, part of join different clubs, you know, make sure you step outside of your comfort zone. And I will say that I never thought that based on my experience with health studies, that I would be writing and presenting in my real job as much as I do. So definitely make sure that that's something that you learn to accept and become comfortable with, because that's what's going to set you apart in your career. So that would be my biggest advice, is that, you know, don't be scared, or don't feel like you're not going to do well if you didn't have an internship. It definitely benefits you and definitely helps set you apart. But you know, there's definitely other things that if you didn't have that experience, that will help you in your future too. And then Lauren.
Great. So I also, similar to Kayla, I didn't have a formal internship experience. I volunteered early on. I've always been pretty active in volunteering, but I volunteered with Friends Way, which is a bereavement nonprofit in Warwick, Rhode Island, which supports children and families who have lost a loved one. I learned about that internship in one of my honors program classes, and I had lost my best friend my freshman year before transferring to URI. And so really wanted to give back to families that had been impacted by that. And when I was at URI, I founded a grief support group with Ryan Loisel, the executive director at URI, for students who had been in a similar position. So that experience allowed me to really, one, lean into leadership, even being like a shy person and talking about a really difficult topic. It really empowered me to be a facilitator, to ask questions, and to really like get to know people in that way through service. Let's see, I did College Leadership Rhode Island, which was an incredible experience. I think most jobs are obtained through relationships and like a thirst for learning and a passion. So that gave me an opportunity to really build connections and to learn more about different sectors and industries. I actually shadowed at CVS Health with David Casey, who oversaw, he was a leader at CVS. So that gave me just the sampling of what, you know, nonprofit, private, and public sectors look like, and had some fellowship opportunities through College Leadership Rhode Island in like domestic violence and violence response spaces. So no formal internship, but those were really great resources for me. I think specific skills, again, if I were to go back in time, I would really lean more into data analysis and like understanding Salesforce and some of the tech side of things that really enable me to do program evaluation and data analysis. I would I think have focused more on those like concrete skills looking back, but it's always like a continuing learning experience. I think For me, the honors program was wonderful because I really got to focus on my super niche interests and do independent study with Dr. Fallon, who oversaw the health studies program when I was there. So really leaning into those pieces, getting research experience, if that's something you're interested in, serving as a research assistant, learning about the different study design types and kind of best practices, all of those things are great. But finding a mentor would be the biggest thing, and continuing that relationship throughout. And that's
Oh, wonderful. Thank you all so much for your insight there. This is so interesting to hear, and there's a lot of information to process here. A couple of things I just want to reiterate. Listening to all of you, it sounds like one thing that I find sort of reassuring, especially for our current students, is there's no one set path. There's no sort of magic formula to follow. It's okay if you haven't done an internship. It's okay if you're pursuing other things. Just focusing on your interests and building skills where you can. And I loved Kayla's point as well about how skill building can be fun, and you can think outside the box in terms of where those things are coming from your involvement in student organizations, from working as a research assistant. There's so many different ways to gather that experience. The other thing I will just say as an aside, as a quick plug, is that I have a large interdisciplinary data set that I love working with students on. And so if any of our current students are thinking that they're interested in learning more about data analysis or working on research, please feel free to reach out to me, because that's something that I'm happy to work with students on. So if that sparked your interest, just make a note of that. Another question that I wanted to pose for our panel to dig in a little more in terms of their current role and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I love to be able to pull back the curtain a little to help people have a better understanding of what does your job actually entail? What does it look like in terms of what you're doing sort of in an average day? And I wondered if that was something you could tell us just a little bit about. So we'll keep just sort of reversing order so that everybody kind of gets a turn to go. Well, not first, but to keep it even. So let's jump back to Lauren and just give us a few minutes of what are you doing in an average day, and what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, thank you. So I have been working from home for the most part since 2020. So the first thing I do is go outside, go for a walk, have time for social connection with friends, take my dog for a walk. And then I dive into emails. I oversee 3 programs: Mindset, which is a 6-week online yoga, meditation, and support group for people who have had brain injury. So traumatic brain injury, as well as acquired brain injuries such as stroke. So I oversee our trainings program as well, and outreach, which is spreading the word about our programs to rehab facilities, hospitals, nonprofits, colleges, etc. So I am a busy girl and kind of structure my day, checking those 3 inboxes, prioritizing, getting in the right mindset to really do the program administration piece. So right now I am in the phase of scheduling for all of our, we have 35 programs of Mindset, so different days and times to accommodate our global community. So I am in the scheduling phase for July programs and confirming our facilitators who run those, many of whom have lived experience of brain injury. So they're yoga teachers, brain injury advocates, some are clinicians. So I help get that into place and planning for our yoga teacher training that's happening in June and throughout the fiscal year. So a lot of like high level strategic planning that's like kind of always happening. And then we're in a cycle of interviewing for our community-based retreats, which are 5-day holistic health retreats that happen in Colorado and Maine. So I get a chance sometimes to support our retreat team by having those interviews to make sure it's a good fit for the person that's applying to come. And we offer these at no charge for people who have had brain injury, including concussions. So it's a really nice way for me to connect with our community. We have like team meetings to kind of share high level wins and learnings. And part of the most exciting thing about my job is that I get to mentor these facilitators. So sometimes I'll have, 15 or 20-minute meetings to maybe coach them on how they're teaching their yoga class. If they have a question of how do I teach chair yoga? I have someone in my group that is, having symptoms, what's like a modification I could do? Or, oh, I'm struggling with teaching chair and mat yoga at the same time for the flow of my class. Like, how can we workshop that? So a lot of mentoring. And then we do these free learning lab events. So we have one coming up in May that's around using breath work to support TBI symptoms. So a full range of like event planning and things. And then for outreach, I often do virtual in-service presentations to clinicians, so physical therapists, occupational therapists, neuropsychologists, on what we offer, our programs, our research that we do, because all of our programs are research backed. So lots of opportunity to connect with people face to face and share our work. So that's a typical day, juggling all those things and building in time to get outside and connect and support my own well-being. Now I'll pass to Keela.
Hi. So I have a very busy day. One of the things I will say that if you're interested in a corporate job, it's definitely not as great of a work-life balance. So that's just something I will throw out there. I start my day where I have a Peloton and I like to work out in the morning before I get on. So, and I have a dog who constantly needs to go out. So it's definitely important to make sure that you're balancing your work with your life and getting up and everything too. And then I'm usually in meetings the whole day. Being on a corporate communications team, there's always something that is coming up that's very big that we want to announce, or there's something that's happening, or there's some sort of crisis. So we do a lot of crisis communications. You'd be surprised how many crises happen in a day. So part of that is for me to help troubleshoot those issues and also to really help with the planning of some future events. The team that I'm on for CVS is the healthcare delivery team, which I'm specifically Minute Clinic, but we also have Oak Street Health and Signify Health, which are two new assets that CVS had acquired within the last year. They are looking to literally change how healthcare is delivered in America. So as you can tell, that is a really big thing that's happening and requires a lot of work and a lot of planning. And we're bringing all of those new colleagues together too. So usually my day starts around 9 o'clock as in terms of my work day. And then it usually ends around 6, but I usually have to keep my phone on and be ready to respond to anything at any time. So I love my job, but it definitely is something that I just have to remind myself I'm blessed to be stressed. So just something that just to give you guys that corporate, and if you're going to work in a big business or you're interested in working somewhere like CVS Health, that's something just to take into consideration. And I will pass it over to Mary.
Right, so I work at Neighborhood Health Plan of Rhode Island, which is, I call it corporate-ish. So we do have that corporate side. We do need to make that money. However, we are extremely member focused. They're very big on employee experience, having that good life work balance. So my day starts around 8 o'clock. I usually go into the office, into my cubicle, but luckily today I'm home and I usually work from home on Fridays, which is really nice. They do that for us. So this morning actually started, we have a number of work groups among our employees. And so there's an employee experience work group that I'm a part of. So it actually started off with that meeting. I'm then working on 2 main projects. One, I'm currently writing SQL code for, and so I actually have a meeting later on to ask a coworker for help because there's a lot of collaboration, which is great. I have another project I'm working on. That's a program evaluation, so I'm putting together a plan for it, as well as a similar one I'm analyzing the data for right now and kind of putting together a summary document so I can present it to the requester. And then I also have to schedule one other meeting to meet about another project that we're starting. So lots of just meeting and doing work, lots of collaboration. One thing that definitely surprised me working is I was very intimidated. These people are very smart that I work with, However, one thing that they really pushed on me and I've really come to appreciate is that nobody knows 100% what they're doing. I'm really encouraged to ask tons of questions. People ask me questions. Nobody's expected to know everything. So my work is not as stressful. Once I'm done at 4, I'm done. But yeah, the work is really rewarding and I have a good time.
All right. My day, I normally come in at, not depending on the day or how I feel. I'm supposed to be here by 8:30, but I normally get here sometime at 9. The dementia resident, they have exercise in the morning. I like joining because it's 30 minutes, and that kind of gives me a boost for my exercise as well. So I join them in the morning. Right now I'm overseeing both the dementia unit and the assistant traditional unit. I'm always going up and down the stairs, so that's where my exercises do come in. And basically, I check in my calendar just to make sure what the activity is like for the day, for the resident, if something needs to be canceled, if we have special events. For example, this morning we had the sales and marketing team from every assisted living around the area come into our facility today. They had breakfast. So I had to make sure residents are on their best behavior and not storming into the meeting. And with the memory support, I do help with their lunchtime, except today because I'm doing the panel. I help them with their lunchtime because that's when I get to interact with the resident, just to make sure what they need. If they need to talk to family members, the ones that don't have phone in their rooms, schedule those one-on-one time. And depending on how the day goes, I check in on my email because I also have to respond back to either corporate emails regarding certain things about our resident, medication. I'm also on the clinical meetings as well, just to make sure that we're addressing like if the disease is progressing, what the behavior is like throughout the day. And for the most part, I tend to get at least 20 minutes to myself just to relax, also have my lunch or all that stuff, but it's oddly happening, especially recently. And then I am done basically with making sure things are ready for the next day. And I'm mostly here till like 6 p.m. and that's my hard deadline, 6 p.m. That's it. If anything needs to be addressed, they can wait till the morning or leave me a note, send me an email, and that's it.
Oh, thank you guys. It is so interesting to hear about sort of what is happening in your lives on a day-to-day basis. It also, I just have to say again, thank you so much for taking time out to be here with us because it's it's so clear that you all are working so hard and in such a variety of capacities. Like I'm so struck by how there's some overlap, but also so many differences in what you do. And so again, there's such a breadth of experience and skills that go into your different roles. So it's great to hear about that. I do want to leave the last 10 minutes or so for questions from our audience. And so if you have questions in the audience, please feel free to stick them in the chat. While we're giving people a minute to think about those questions or pose them in the chat, I just had one last really quick question for our panelists, if you guys don't mind. In just a sentence or two, is there something you wish you knew before graduating college? And we'll reverse our order again. So I'll kick it right back to Opiemi. If you have any thoughts on that, I would love to know. Just a quick snippet for us before we jump into Q&A.
I would say one thing I wish I knew or I should have taken serious was the networking part, because that definitely, I mean, some people know me based on me being in an organization, or maybe they were part of the organization when they graduated. So one thing that I wish I knew was taking my networking seriously.
I think one thing is just to not be intimidated. When I graduated, I was intimidated by grad school. When I graduated grad school, I was very intimidated by called it like the real world, getting an adult job and doing all of that, everybody did seem like experts and they knew what they were doing. Coming in new can be scary, but like I said, nobody expects you to know everything. If you think you don't meet the requirements for something, still apply. Those are usually the jobs you end up getting, honestly. So yeah, just not being as intimidated as I have been.
For me, I wish I took advantage of more opportunities. Just more of like, if just like Dr. Sabik had said, knowing that there was some research opportunities I probably could have gone to professors for that wouldn't have really taken as much of my time in terms of having to give up a full-time job and everything, but also getting that experience. I think I thought with the internships when I was in college that it wasn't doable for me. And there's definitely ways to make it happen, including the offer that Dr. Sabik had just given. So I think I wish that I had done a little bit more sleuthing and taken advantage of those and had a little bit more opportunity within the health studies realm instead of pouring everything into like work and school and in my sorority and stuff. So that's one thing I wish I did, but it all worked out. So.
Okay, so I was thinking about what I would share, and immediately a quote from someone who I had the fortune of meeting at URI, Dr. Paul Farmer. He co-founded Partners in Health, and he was such a leader on issues of social inequality and global health. And he has a great book, To Repair the World. Paul Farmer speaks to the next generation, and he suddenly passed away a couple of years ago. So really fortunate to have met him and that he wrote all of this wisdom in so many books. But one quote that comes to mind is, with rare exceptions, all of your most important achievements on this planet will come from working with others, or in a word, partnership. So speaking to the networking piece, it's so important. And then the other one quick thing is, I shared this in the beginning, that if you have an idea that can, you think will alleviate suffering in the world or brings you joy or sparks your academic or personal interest, and someone you go to with it maybe is discouraging, do it anyway. When you're chasing what you love or what brings you joy, you're going to find your people along the way. You'll find your mentors, you'll find your collaborators. So don't be afraid to do that and take full advantage of your youth. So enjoy that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing that with us. I love the wisdom that you are imparting with us today. I also remember feeling like networking seemed like this big scary thing where I used to think it was about having to cold call people you don't know, which is way outside of my comfort zone. And I really have come to realize it's about building and strengthening relationships, especially within your existing network. And so I love that you guys are speaking to that for our current students to think about more. And thinking about our alumni base and your professors in the department as part of your network, because we are here to support you. We have a really strong alumni base, and everyone I think has been really wonderful in coming back and sharing their insights. So I wanted to see if we had any questions from our audience. You guys can feel free to put something in the chat, or you might be able to use the raise hand function if you wanted to pop on and ask anything. So we'll just give it a minute and see if anybody has anything they'd like to ask the panel or any one of the panelists specifically. Feel free to share your questions with us now.
I know I see Joyce ask how many years was my MHA. It took me 2 years. I graduated 2018 and I started 2016. So it only took me 2 years.
Wonderful. Thank you for catching that one. I missed that earlier in the chat. Anything else anyone wants to know from our panelists today? No, it looks like we're not getting any questions, but oh, here we go. We got one from Gianni. He asked, what are the best ways to network if you have any advice? No, I appreciate you putting that in the chat, Gianni. That is a great question. Yeah. Do any of our panelists have any thoughts on that?
I can jump in. I think kind of looking, you can do a little Google search to see like association. So if there's like a topic that you're interested in or a specific area, you can kind of see if there's an event coming up or there's a professional organization that you can go to like their meetings. But really like staying up to date on like free events that are happening. So there's so many. They can be panel discussions like this, or they can be maybe a policy or advocacy event. I know there's a lot happening right now in that area, especially around bike advocacy in Providence and protecting the bike lane and healthy kind of built environments that support health. So there's so many opportunities to dive into that, and really like following your local, if you're into policy, like your local politicians, advocacy groups, and just showing up and saying hi to someone. So even if you might feel like awkward or shy being there, or like, oh, I'm a student, I don't know if I don't have experience in this area, just asking people questions and kind of building those relationships, because they can then connect you to other people. I've found when I lean into that discomfort and kind of speak up or ask questions that I'm curious about, so much good has come from that. And so kind of being with that discomfort, if you're more of an introvert, and kind of staying up to date on that, and signing up for different trainings or workshops or things that you're interested in are always great opportunities, because if it is a class, you're likely spending time with your classmates or your professors, so you can get to know them more at a different level. So I took classes at RISD, I took classes at the Steel Yard, all different types of classes, but they can kind of connect you to career things as well.
I was gonna jump into, I would say join professional association too. I know that was one thing during my master's that someone told me, and I didn't realize how much of an opportunity it would open for me. I'm part of ACHE, which is American College of Healthcare Executives. And I can honestly say with joining panels like this, through that, I've learned a lot about my background in health administration. They have a job center. They have meetings, group, like Rhode Island have their own chapter, Massachusetts have their own chapters. I mean, all the chapters, just in case I ever travel and I wanted to be joining one of their events. So I would say join some professional association as well.
Yeah, I agree. ACHE is a wonderful organization. So is NESHCO, which is New England Society for Healthcare Communications. They all have student rates and discounts too. But if that isn't your jam and you're kind of more want to do things, not have to go to things, or you're not into professional organizations, then something as simple as sending each of us an email. Just that's simple and easy. If you were interested in anything any of us had to say today, then I'm sure you would be able, I'm not sure if our emails were on the invite or not, but I'm sure it'd be easy for us to either give it to you or for it to go in a post, like in a post meeting summary too. And if there's anything I learned in my career, is that a lot of professionals are very excited to be mentors too. So even if you're just reaching out to people, and one thing, if you're a Rhode Island resident, that every town has are prevention coalitions. And a lot of those meetings can be public, or as Lauren was saying, like if you go on the state website page and there's a bill, if there's a law that you're really interested in learning more about, anything from insurance reimbursement to the bike path and things like that, all of those meetings are public, or you can even just broadcast them live on your computer and learn more about it, or even join groups where you can provide testimony if you're interested in policy. So there's a lot of really great ways to really network. And right now at CBS, what I do is I have one-on-one meetings once a month with different people to see how they're doing. So just staying in touch with your professors and other students, because if there's one thing I can tell you is, like, You know, there might be that one weird kid in your grade, and then you'll see them 10 years later and they're doing something awesome and you're happy you were nice to them, you know? So that's one thing I'll say, be nice to everyone and stay in touch with everyone in your class, because you never know where they'll end up and how they can help you too.
Well, it looks like we are just about out of time. It is noon. So I want to once again thank our panelists. You guys have given us so much food for thought today, and I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us. I also want to thank all of our audience that came to learn from you. And I'll just reiterate, feel free to follow up with our panelists if you had any further questions or anything else you want to know. And I really like this advice about networking. Think about, for our current students, putting together your LinkedIn. That's a really good way to stay in touch with people. That's sort of an easy lift to keep that active. And we have some more information in the chat as well about different resources that our panelists are sharing. So thank you once again to everyone. I really appreciate you guys. This was a great event, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Thursday.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Natalie, did you want us to stay on?
I just wanted to
Yeah.
say thank you
Yeah.
to all of you for